Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff Operations Officer, assisted the National Security Team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan and served as the Vice Commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
Daughters of the American Revolution started in 1890 in response to Sons of the American Revolution, which had started the year prior. These are biological hereditary groups where if you can prove that you are linked to an actual soldier who fought in the Revolutionary War, you are eligible for membership. Now, Daughters of the American Revolution has become much bigger than Sons of the American Revolution. They focus on patriotism, education, a love of history. But in recent years, you've had the leadership has said that they would like to sort of surreptitiously allow men to join the group so long as those men claim to be women, which is not a scientific reality.
And so, of course, they had this vote on, I think it was on Friday. And what was the result? What is the, there's a lot of back and forth, of course, between the two sides within the DAR. But what was the effective result of the vote?
So a couple of years ago, the leadership kind of quietly changed the bylaws to say that men could join Daughters of the American Revolution so long as they claim to be women. You've had various chapters and other groups trying to say this is ridiculous. We are literally the Daughters of the American Revolution, and this denial of reality does not fit with our charter. So the most recent effort was just this week, a group of women tried to say it doesn't matter if, for an organization based on an ability to prove biological relationship to a soldier, it doesn't make sense to say if you can have a state alter your birth certificate to say that you're a female when you're a male, that therefore you're eligible for this women-only organization.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. We're live on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast, folks. Well, for generations, as you just heard, the Daughters of the American Revolution have stood as a proud symbol of our patriotism. Their motto, God, home, and country, and their mission of historic preservation, education, and patriotism have guided the organization for over a century. But today, the DAR is facing serious accusations of going woke. Members who simply want to preserve the organization's traditional standards are being intimidated, blackballed, and suppressed by national and state officers. Chapters that push back are reportedly cut off from new member referrals and genealogical support. The group is in a full-blown governance crisis. Chapter proposed bylaw amendments have been rejected by the board for 3 years straight. This is not new. It's been going on for a while. And now the National Board of Management is trying to make it impossible to challenge them, proposing to raise the number of chapters needed to call a special meeting and the number needed to propose bylaws changes by 1,200%. That's right, 1,200%. And at the recent 135th Continental Congress, attempts to address these problems were blocked, as you just heard. Live stream access was denied, procedural maneuvers limited debate, and a key resolution failed amid reports of voting irregularities. Well, fighting back is a growing group that's called Daughters Advocating for Restoration. They now have over 100 chapters signed on for a special meeting this October, and they have support in Congress through Representative Ben Cline's DAR Integrity Act, which would amend the congressional charter to clearly define the word woman. And joining me now is Laura McDonald from Daughters Advocating for Restoration, and I believe a member of the DAR itself. Laura, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Colonel. Thank you for having me, and thank you to our mutual friends who connected us.
Oh, you bet. You bet. We appreciate them. That's what makes this country work, is friends and family. That's what Americans are all about. So the Daughters of the American Revolution, tell folks, I mean, we covered it a little bit. It was set up by women because the Sons of the American Revolution was established one year and excluded women. It's my understanding to do that. But what do they do? What does the organization do from the perspective of its members?
We are a service organization. So when I first joined the DAR, I didn't realize that. I thought it was just something that you joined because you had patriotic pride. I was just so happy that I could claim that I had a heritage of a patriot. So when my mother and my sister and I joined in 2018, I didn't really realize how big and the DAR is and what its purpose was. And we are a service organization. We go out into the community doing various things. We, raise awareness about various patriotic things going on in our communities. We help veterans. We help women's shelters. We go to schools. We do programs. Graveside cleanings, Reads Across America, all of those things are what the DAR does. I'm probably leaving off a lot of things, but those are the things that I have participated in.
One of the things that I mentioned in the monologue was genealogical support being cut off. What is genealogical support?
So in order to be a member of the DAR, you have to prove your own biological line to a patriot. So the bylaws say that any woman 18 years of age or older who can prove lineal descent of a patriot is eligible for membership. So in order to prove your heritage, your lineal descent, you have to have documents that go back. And now, that DNA is becoming more prevalent. I know the DAR does accept DNA results, but the genealogical research, and I'm not a registrar. I didn't do my own. My mother did ours, but I know that it is it's grueling. It's tedious, and these women who want to become members of the DAR, they need help. And like our local chapter has a registrar, and she's fantastic. She does a lot of the work, but there are some chapters that still need help. Like, say, for example, there's a patriot that's not been actually proven to have been a patriot. You need, what they call genies and registrars that are at the higher levels who have a lot more experience than, say, somebody at the local level to help prove that, or to prove that an applicant does have a link to one of these patriots.
So is there like a repository of the documents somewhere?
Oh, yes.
That folks use?
Oh, yes. And the genealogy side of this, I am woefully ignorant on, so you'll have to forgive me, but I do know that the DAR does keep just copious amounts of genealogical records. They have a library, and people clamor to get in there to be able to find information, to be able to link themselves to a patriot. So like right now, I'm only linked to one patriot, but there are women who have patriot pins that are, down to their feet. They're so long, and those are the pins that I'm personally interested in, to be able to link to many patriots. So, but the answer to your question is yes, they have just an enormous repository of genealogical records.
And where is the library located at?
Washington, D.C.
Oh, it is I was wondering if it was in Washington, D.C. I assume in the headquarters of the DAR?
Yes, sir.
And does the organization pay rent for their headquarters?
No, sir. We own it. We own that building.
Oh, really? Inside Washington, D.C.?
Yes, sir. And as a matter of fact, we used to be able to claim that we were the only women's organization to hold as much property as we do. And they still make that claim, but it's a little bit, since we now have men who are members of the DAR, we can't really truthfully make that claim anymore. But yes, we do own those properties. And we were, you'll have to forgive me too, because there's a lot of nuance in it, but I do know we have a congressional charter, and I think that charter is what gave us the ability to purchase the property there in Washington, D.C. back in the early 1900s.
Yeah. Most like veterans organizations, they have, the official ones have a congressional charter too. So tell us how this issue started. I mean, I use the generic term woke, and you just mentioned men are now being allowed to become members. And it's my understanding that men pretending to be women are allowed to become members of the DAR now. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir. It is accurate.
And how did that come about?
Well, I can tell you how I came about the knowledge and then the progression. So in 2023, there was a bylaw amendment that was adopted that added additional anti-discrimination language to our bylaws. So there was already a clause that said that you cannot discriminate against an eligible applicant. But in 2023, there was a proposed amendment that was adopted that added additional language that says you can't discriminate based on race, religion, sexual orientation, age, disability, or any other characteristic protected by applicable law. That last phrase is key. So at that point in time, and still to this day, they talk out of both sides of their mouth. And I want to be careful, too, to make sure I don't mean to be disparaging of our leaders or the DAR. We love the DAR. I'm just being truthful about what we're up against here. It's a very confusing scenario. So on the one hand, they've told us that bylaw amendment had absolutely nothing to do with gender identity, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's just pause right there. So in 2023, I asked my mother, I just had an epiphany one day because I was going to give a presentation to our local Rotary Club about Wreaths Across America. Mm-hmm. And I was going to introduce myself and talk about the DAR. And I was going to make a joke and tell the guys in the audience, look, fellas, this is only for women. But as soon as I was writing out my little speech, I thought about Rachel Levine, the former health secretary. And I thought, what are we going to do when somebody like him decides he wants to join the DAR? You know, a prominent public figure who may have lineal descent of a patriot. What are we going to do when he decides he wants to join? And so I immediately asked my mom, do you know anything about this? What would we do? And she said, well, I'm afraid that something like that's already going on. So that's whenever I really learned about this bylaw amendment that was adopted. So that's when I started asking questions in 2023 in earnest, in good faith, trying to figure out, is this something that we actually have to do? Is this a defensive position, or is this an ideological position? That at that point in time, I did not know. So over the course of time, mm-hmm. I've learned that it is indeed an ideological position. And I say that because we uncovered an internal document that was not meant for my eyes or any other rank and file member, but it was for state and national officers. It's an FAQ by the then President General that she put out. And it essentially says that, yes, quote, trans women are eligible for membership. Right? That was the first. And then the next question is, well, if trans women are eligible for membership, then are men eligible for membership? Like somebody like you that doesn't identify as a woman. And the answer was no. And then it goes on to say that a trans woman is not a man. A trans woman lives and identifies as a woman. So whenever I saw that document, I knew that was something that the DAR had put out as like kind of an unofficial official statement, meaning this is how we want you to respond to members when they ask these questions. I knew there was somebody or some bodies, I don't know how many, that have taken an ideological position on this. So to answer your question, when did it start? I know that the first openly trans, or the first man who openly claims to be trans became a member in 2022. But we've recently found out that it happened as early as 2012. And at this last meeting, Continental Congress, a former President General, who's now an honorary President General, somebody that we have all looked up to and admired very much and respected, took the stage, the microphone, and said that during her administration, she personally reviewed the applicant of what she called a trans daughter. So in my mind, a trans daughter, that's a man. That's somebody she knows as a man because she's referring to him as a trans daughter.
That's right.
And that she had this application and this birth certificate from this individual that said it was a female, but she knows he's a man, right? But this birth certificate says female. Okay. So she went to the genealogical department and said, what do we do about this? And they told her, oh, it's a state certified birth certificate. It's legit. So I don't want to say too much. I don't want to misquote her, but the gist of what she told us was that she faced this situation. She knew it was a man. He had an amended birth certificate, and the application was approved. So we know it happened at least as early as 2012 or 2013.
And the bylaws are very strict, right? I mean, if you're a real woman and you can't make the right genealogical connections down throughout history, you're not getting in.
Correct. Right? So if you have been adopted,
let me take a quick break right here, and we can pick this up again, because I want to get to that question about the law a little bit deeper too, Laura. Okay. We'll be right back with Laura McDonald.
At a certain age, you stop chasing younger. You start protecting what helps you feel steady, strong, and well. Your body's collagen matters. It supports the structure of your skin, joints, and connective tissue. But as the years go by, your body needs more support from the inside. That's where Bella Grace Elixir comes in. Bella Grace Elixir combines Verisol collagen, the world's most clinically proven collagen, with asteryl astaxanthin and cat's claw in a proprietary blend designed to help support the processes that reconstruct collagen, while also offering antioxidant and anti-inflammatory effects. And this isn't just for women. It's for men and women who want to age with more confidence, more care, and a daily wellness routine that supports the body from within. One simple elixir, thoughtfully formulated for whole body wellness. Take care of the body that has carried you this far. Order Bella Grace Elixir today at melissahousebg.com.
The irony in what is happening with the Daughters of the American Revolution would be actually laughable if it wasn't so sad. You can't even get into the DAR unless you have a, quote, bloodline descent from an ancestor who aided in achieving American independence. So they make you prove that you're biologically related to a soldier from the American Revolution, but they don't care if you're a biological male joining. Make it make sense. So in 1889, the Sons of the American Revolution were founded, and these group of women wanted to express their patriotism but were being excluded from that group. So they founded the Daughters of the American Revolution in 1890. And now men are openly being welcomed in. Let's backtrack a little. So in July 2023, the DAR sneakily introduced a non-discrimination bylaw amendment at the 132nd Continental Congress. Later that year, the President General at that time, Pamela Wright, said in a statement that transgender women can join DAR. Actually, they've always been allowed to, as long as it says female on their birth certificate, which we all know you can change. And that's when the can of worms busted open. Several DAR chapters have submitted bylaw amendment proposals to define a woman, but they've all been rejected. A group of DAR women even broke off and created their own 501c3 nonprofit called Daughters Advocating for Restoration. It is our prayer that these women will hopefully soon get the justice they deserve, because Representative Ben Cline from Virginia is introducing a bill to restore the Daughters of the American Revolution back to its rightful state as a women's only organization. Thank you, Representative Cline, for standing for fairness for women and for putting the daughters, not sons pretending to be daughters, back in the Daughters of the American Revolution.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. We're talking about that organization right there, the Daughters of the American Revolution, because they are allowing men pretending to be women to be full members as Daughters of the American Revolution. It's not an associate membership like, like I can be an associate member of the Republican Women's Club because I'm a man. No, this is full membership declared by the leadership. And eyewitnesses. And my guest today is Laura McDonald, who's a member of the DAR. But also, Laura, are you the founder of the Daughters Advocating for Restoration
Yes,
group
sir.
that's out there?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah. So before we jump to that group itself, let's talk about the law. You pointed that out about that bylaw amendment that said, according to applicable law, I think is that allow, that bars discrimination. There is no federal law, is there, that says that trans people are can't be discriminated against in like an organization like this, which is a woman's organization, right? I mean, there's no federal law that prohibits that, right?
I'm not an attorney, but no, sir. I would feel very confident to say no, that we have a First Amendment right to freedom of association and freedom of expression. We have actually procured a legal memorandum from from the Center for American Liberty. That's a nonprofit that was founded by Harmeet Dillon, who is now the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights. Her signature is on that document. It's very robust. It's 14 pages long, along with Attorney Mark Trammell. And they go into detail and cite case law about why they believe the DAR is within its First Amendment rights to continue to exclude men, just as we've done since our founding, no matter what document they submit. But the kicker is that in Washington, D.C., there is something called the District of Columbia Human Rights Act of 1977. And it's got all of these protected characteristics. One of them is transgender. One of them is also sex. So under that act, it says that in places of public accommodation, housing, education, and employment, you cannot discriminate against people with these protected characteristics. So we understand that in DAR's capacity as, a place of public accommodation, our library, our hall, and its capacity as an employer, that of course it is subject to that act. It cannot discriminate, and probably shouldn't. It should not discriminate. It should be merit-based when you're hiring and firing. But what they're now saying is that the DAR, so at the meeting last month, during debate, they presented a one-sided legal opinion from an attorney named Samuel R. Bagenstos out of Michigan, and your audience should go look him up. He makes the claim that the DAR is subject to the provisions of that Human Rights Act of the District of Columbia because they have a place of public accommodation and because they are an employer. But he does not address the private membership aspect of the DAR, and he doesn't differentiate between how you can pick and choose which characteristic applies. So, for example, like I said before, sex is also a protected characteristic. So according to that logic, if you keep tracking that logic, if you can't discriminate against somebody that identifies as transgender, which, by the way, how do you confirm that? How does the DAR even know if somebody identifies as transgender? Whenever they go on, is their birth certificate that's submitted? That's a question I have. But then you cannot discriminate against you, Colonel. The DAR can't say that you can't be a member, otherwise they're in violation of that same act. So, and that gets back to what we've been saying about what happened in 2023. They have told us for years that we're spreading misinformation about that bylaw amendment, that it had nothing to do with gender identity. So that phrase, any characteristic protected by applicable law. Well, now I want to say, so now you're saying the District of Columbia Human Rights Act of 1977, that transgenders are a protected class under that. So if the 2023 amendment had nothing to do with transgenders, why didn't it?
Right. Exactly. That's one of my questions, is so this is a DC law, right? The interesting thing is that the Constitution gives Congress the authority in the District of Columbia, and they only allow home rule, which has resulted in these laws by act of Congress. That's being debated whether that should stand right now, too. And it's just very interesting that they're trying to apply it outside of employment. And quite honestly, I'm a hardcore anti-men pretending to be women person. But, I don't believe in discriminating for job applications, and unless there's something about the position that would preclude that that type of situation. That's the issue. One of the issues that I'm concerned about is that law being misapplied here. By the leadership. So tell me about your organization, Daughters Advocating for Restoration, and what type of activities is it involved in? It's not an assumption that you all were created to push back on this. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. It was created out of necessity. So, like I said earlier, in 2023, when I first found out about this and was earnestly trying to find out why this was happening, is this an ideological position or is this Because what we've been told is that on the advice of legal counsel, we have to do this. So back in 2023, I said, well, I'd like to see that counsel. I'd like to see who it was, who was the attorney or the law firm that provided it, and what was their counsel. I'm not an attorney by any means. I did take a constitutional law class in college, so I have somewhat of an understanding of how these things work. I can read, and I can, understand that kind of stuff. So I wanted to at least see that, and it was either ignored, completely ignored, or responded to with wordy emails that made reference to things that don't apply to us, like Title II of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and Title VII. It goes back to what we said before about places of public accommodation, employer-employee relationship things. The answer is Daughters Advocating for Restoration was, first of all, formed as just a Facebook group, as a way to communicate with each other, because we were completely shut down from talking to each other on the DAR social media sanctioned platforms. So each state has a private page that if you're a member that you can join and you can collaborate with other members. And I won't get too much into all that because there's a lot of drama involved in it. But the long and short of it is that members were silenced, shut down, told that we could not communicate with each other. We can't bring it up at our chapter. We can't use our member directories to contact each other. And there's also what's called a circularization policy that says that you can't, spread a rumor and you can't disturb the harmony of the DAR, which is a good policy when applied correctly. You don't want troublemakers out there, but when you're talking about legitimate DAR business and things that are happening that are not a rumor, things that are true, you shouldn't be silenced. That shouldn't be used as a cudgel to silence members, and it was. So the Facebook page was created, and I was just trying to figure out a way to make it relatable to the DAR, so the Daughters Advocating for Restoration's got the same initialism as DAR. So as the years progressed, and we were getting nowhere with our bylaw amendment proposals because the board they've been gatekeepers. They've been keeping us from amending our bylaws. We realized that we needed the help of a professional parliamentarian, and so we started raising money in late 2025. Okay. And we raised a significant sum in a relatively short amount of time. And as the months went on, I realized I was going to be getting a 1099 for that. And so it wasn't even something that I guess the best way I can say it is that God has opened doors and taken a seed of something that was created out of necessity, and now it's turned into something much bigger. So since Congress and Ms. Hemingway talking about our issue, we have raised a significant sum of money. I feel that is significant. And we're using that money right now to procure as many different opinions as we can from professional parliamentarians and from various attorneys about, which we can talk about this special meeting that we're still due. That's something that we're getting parliamentary advice on as well. But specifically, this D.C. Human Rights Act of 1977, we need somebody other than Mr. Bagginstoes to weigh in on that. So that's right now what we're using those monies for. And a lot of people are chomping at the bit, I'll just be honest, to sue the DAR. And we are, that's the last thing that we want to do. We don't want to get embroiled in a lawsuit with the DAR. We want to settle this through our governance process because we have the mechanisms to do it. It's just that the National Board of Management and the President General they're not following the rules, just to be frank, they're not. And so we're trying to figure out what recourse do we have to actually compel them to abide by our bylaws, to fulfill their duty, to call a special meeting.
Yeah, because according to your bylaws, the way I understand it, and then I'm going to say this, and then we'll take a break, and we'll come back and address it. According to what the bylaws say, the assembly, which is the members, is the superior body in your bylaws, which means that the decision making should be coming from there, not corporate officers. and they're responsible for helping manage it, the coordination and the meetings and those kind of things. But other than that, it's the assembly's decisions, which means a vote by parliamentary procedure, if I understand correctly. So we'll address that when we come back from this break with the founder of Daughters Advocating for Restoration, Laura McDonald.
Take a look at the water you just poured. It looks clean, it tastes fine, but what's really in it? Lead, fluoride, arsenic, chlorine, pesticides, PFAS forever chemicals, pharmaceutical residues, and bacteria. Every single day, these toxins flow straight from your tap into your glass, into your family. It's time for Sentry H2O from Worldview Water. Sentry H2O is the ultimate water treatment technology, designed to remove harmful toxins, balance your water's pH, and enrich it with essential minerals like calcium and magnesium, the way nature intended. From commercial scale systems to whole house filtration to crisp, delicious drinking water right at your kitchen sink and shower, Sentry H2O delivers cleaner, healthier water everywhere you need it. No plumber, no tools, no plumbing knowledge required. Perfect for homes, apartments, rentals, RVs, refrigerators, and more. Because everyone deserves access to clean, healthy water. Visit worldviewwater.net. That's worldviewwater.net.
So, some of you guys know, I'm a member of the Daughters of the American Revolution. I have 4 to 7 ancestors that I've been able to trace so far. They're going to be 6th or 7th great-grandfathers of mine who served in the Revolutionary War, and specifically on the American side. We don't talk about the Tory ones. So I just want to talk about one today. My ancestor, Stephen Harding, he's my 6th great-grandfather. He served in the Monongalia militia during the Revolutionary War on the Virginia frontier. He and his wife Elizabeth raised 15 children through the Revolution, through the wilderness, through everything. They survived. They built something. They moved through the Cumberland Gap into Kentucky when it was still raw frontier, and they kept going. Just kept going. And the DAR was built to honor women like Elizabeth and her husband Stephen and the sacrifices that they made for us to be where we are today. Women who held the line while their husbands fought. Women who raised the next generation of Americans in conditions that most of us cannot even imagine. I'm one of Elizabeth's daughters, literally, and I am telling you that what happened at the 135th Continental Congress this week is a betrayal, just pure 100% betrayal of every woman whose blood runs through this organization. My ancestors didn't survive the frontier so that her legacy could be handed to someone who was born male. I am a daughter of the American Revolution, and I'm not going anywhere.
They're not going anywhere, the Daughters of the American Revolution. And Laura McDonald is my guest today, and she's leading the effort to try to restore the DAR so that men pretending to be women are not allowed to be full members of this organization. And Laura, I chose the 2 clips of the young ladies intentionally because I think, I suspect that there may be a few people out there that go, the DAR, they're just a bunch of old ladies, on canes and wheelchairs and that kind of thing. It's not really that important. That's not true.
It's not true.
It's not true.
It's not true.
My wife's a descendant of an American Revolutionary War soldier, and she hasn't joined yet because she's working on her genealogy stuff. But she's adamant and was very excited to hear that I was going to do this show today because this has got to be fixed. I mean, we have to stop disrespecting the women of America, and that's as a male, that's what I see. Here is just another action that disrespects the women of America and everything that they've accomplished throughout the centuries and everything that they stand for.
That's right. And I'm smiling so big because that's a fellow Texas daughter, Bree. But she and I don't know each other personally, but we've become acquainted over the last few weeks. And she's just, she's awesome. She's strong. Yeah.
She is. So how is it? How is the governance of the Daughters of the American Revolution? Just walk us through real quick. How is it supposed to work? I mentioned the assembly being the superior body. How is it supposed to work? And then contrast that with how you're seeing the leadership trying to make it work.
So in Robert's Rules of Order, it says that the assembly, the membership who make up any organization, they are the superior body. They're the ones who make decisions about what the organization is going to do. And then the executive officers in a board of directors or board of management in this case are there to carry out the will of the assembly. They are forgive me, I think the term is the subordinate body. So you got the superior and the subordinate. That's the spirit of it. They are there to carry out the will of the assembly. So our bylaws are, and I know we've tried to amend our bylaws over the last 3 years to define a woman. And the truth of the matter is we really shouldn't have to do that. Our bylaws are okay the way that they read. The word woman has a clear definition. It's how they're being interpreted. So what's happened is you've got women who are either, I guess what you would call it in the executive or the national level over the course of time have made internal policy decisions to accept amended birth certificates for one group of people, men, but not for another group of people, women who have been adopted. We can talk about the nuance there, but they are amending our bylaws through interpretation. So instead of going through the process of actually proposing an amendment to our bylaws that says, hey, we want to allow for these individuals to be members, they're just as the word Ms. Hemingway used was surreptitiously getting it in there by just recognizing men to be women who have an amended birth certificate. And they act like there is absolutely no way that the DAR could ever question a document that somebody submits, which is laughable, to be honest, because that's what we do as a genealogical society. You can ask women who have applied and been rejected over the smallest thing. And the perfect example is a woman who has been adopted. And if you have a woman that's been adopted by parents who have lineal descent of a patriot, she has a state certified legal birth certificate saying who her parents are. So I'll use myself as an example because I don't have children. If I was to adopt a baby girl, her birth certificate, original, would be sealed away by the court, and the state would issue her a brand new legal document that says, I'm her mother. Well, the DAR says that little baby girl, you cannot apply to the DAR, even though your mother, Laura, she has lineal descent of a patriot, and your birth certificate says that she's your mother, you cannot use that document to become a member. You have to go petition the court to get your original birth certificate. And if you can't do that, then you got to go find your biological parents or a sibling, and you got to take a DNA test or a blood test to be able to link up your own lineal descent. So it's very rigorous, strict genealogical guidelines, which I have no problem with. If that's the standard, that's fine. But when it comes to these individuals who are men who have their birth certificate amended, all of a sudden, who are we to question that document is what they say. So if that doesn't tell you that this is an ideological stance that they're taking, I don't know what else does.
Yeah,
but,
so
go ahead.
Let me ask you this. If these men that are pretending to be women have the changed birth certificate, they still have to prove their genealogical lineage to a patriot, right?
They do. And that's what the people who are, so you got, a few different camps of people. You got people who are activists who think trans women are women. And by the way, our President General and several state national officers are part of a Facebook group called Daughters for Inclusivity that makes the claim trans women are women. And we're not supposed to be political, and yet they're out there making political statements that trans women are women. But so you've got that camp. And then you've got some who are more apathetic and maybe they haven't really thought too hard about it. And what they come back and say is, well, yeah, but they can still prove their descent of a patriot. So that's all that matters. And what we're saying is that's not all that matters. There are two criteria, but there are two biological criteria for you to be a daughter, a woman of lineal descent. So why do you throw one out all of a sudden? Why does all of a sudden daughter mean nothing? Why does woman mean nothing all of a sudden?
Yeah, because I could be a member under those rules.
You could. You should apply. What happens?
Yeah. I mean, as with all of this stuff, it's just you have to make yourself a little bit crazy to be in the camp of the Daughters for Inclusivity, ladies. I mean, that's just, it's nuts to allow men pretending to be women or boys pretending to be girls into my daughter's locker room. It's just nuts. And it's nuts to force me, a male in American society, to by law, to try to force me to use pronouns of a man pretending to be a woman as a she. And that's an actual law in some states. I think they've passed it. Wouldn't surprise me if the D.C. folks hadn't passed it. The pronoun law, So tell folks what happened in the 135th in detail as the way members were treated, Laura. I think this is a very important part of the story.
So our bylaws say that upon the request of 30 chapters in 10 states, the President General shall call a special meeting, which by nature is at a time different than any regular meeting. We've met that requirement 3 times over. Instead of giving us our special meeting as pursuant to our bylaws, they added our vote on a resolution to this year's Congress. So we were faced with a dilemma. We never conceded that fulfilled our request for a special meeting, but we knew that if we didn't show up at Congress that would be voted on, we wouldn't be there to vote. So we had to show up. So at that meeting, there were standing rules put in place that said that we could not, they would not live stream the meeting, which, by the way, it's in our handbook that all business sessions will be live streamed. But all of a sudden this year, no, they're not going to be live streamed. We made a motion to try to amend those standing rules to allow for that. It was not adopted. There was also standing rules that said you could not reference, read, quote, or even rely upon any other legal opinion other than the one the DAR gave us, which was the one from Mr. Bagenstos. So we were severely hampered in our ability to counteract that. So when you have members that get an official-looking document from the board saying, here, this is what you need to use to make your decision, that the DAR is going to go bankrupt if we do this, we'll lose our tax-exempt status, our properties will be taken from us, like everything will go to hell in a handbasket if you vote for this, is essentially what happened there. We were severely hampered from being able to give a counter. We did our best. We did our best. And as you know, 40% of the members there voted in favor of the resolution. So there's one thing. There was probably 2 really big major issues, though, besides those that I just said, is that after many, many hours of debate, the way it works is when somebody makes a motion, the presiding officer reads that motion. And then right before you're going to go for a vote, they read it again to make sure that members understand what they're voting on. And I want to say that the lady they brought in to preside, she was not a member of the DAR. She was not the national parliamentarian. She was a professional parliamentarian and an attorney. And she did a fantastic job for the most part, with one caveat, which is pretty big. Before we voted, instead of reading the resolution that we had presented and doing it in a way that was meant to be as a positive thing, as upholding our founding principles, it was presented in a way as exclusionary, where you're voting to exclude, quote, trans women. A point of order was made saying that was that's not the way it should be framed. It was not well taken, and the resolution was not read prior to the vote. The ballot that members got simply said, when the presiding officer tells you, vote yes or no. So a lot of women, after the fact, I've learned, they thought a no vote meant no to allowing men to be members. Yeah. Versus we want to adopt this resolution that says men cannot be members. So there's that. The other thing is we had secured a paper ballot vote. That was huge because members told us if we can vote our conscience, or if we can vote in a paper ballot, we can vote our conscience. And we had been assured that the DAR was prepared to administer a paper ballot vote. So what happened is they went around and they gave out their ballots to all the ladies there, and I cast my ballot, my vote, put it in the box. And one of the key things is that we had said we wanted to appoint observers to be able to watch the count, and we hadn't done that yet. So I'll try to make this snappy. I went up to the front after I voted to speak to the presiding officer, and was waiting on her to come back when I was told I needed to take a seat in a different section from where I was before. And I did. The security officer, who was awesome, Mr. Larry, if you're listening, we love you, he asked me to come take a seat. And I did. Well, as I'm sitting there, here come more tellers for that section, passing out more ballots, and they offer me another ballot. And I told them, I've already voted. And so then I started thinking, well, what are you going to do? What do you do about that? If people actually get up and move, what do you do? And so the next thing I know, they're coming on the stage saying we got to start all over, that they had reports of cheating. And again, I didn't see anybody cheat, but there was that. So then it was an hours long process of starting all the vote completely over. So what happened is you had women cast their vote in the first round and left. They left the premises, and so they didn't know there was a revote. So there's that. And members were also told they could not leave the hall without forfeiting the right to vote. So you had women in there for hours without using the restroom. And what I've been told, and I'm careful to say this is hearsay, I didn't witness this myself, but I believe there were bathrooms available for executive officers to freely use to come and go, not forfeiting their right to vote, but not rank and file members. That's what I've been told. And I've also recently learned that that's not even necessarily a rule, that you can leave and come back during a business session. But if you leave during a vote, you forfeit your right to vote, but that doesn't mean you can't come and go.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we've got to take one more break. When we come back, I want to continue this discussion and get into what the way ahead ought to be versus what we're seeing here with Laura McDonald of the DAR.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work. Try to see a doctor this week, or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Go to worldviewhealthcare.com. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. worldviewhealthcare.com. That's worldviewhealthcare.com.
The emergency kit available at worldviewhealthcare.com. Make sure you don't have to go to urgent care. I got pneumonia. I didn't have to go. I took this last year. Stayed at home. Went to bed.
There's a group that's been around for a very long time in America. It's called the Daughters of the American Revolution. It's a genealogical society. Men who think that they're women are now attempting to join the Daughters of the American Revolution. That part's not crazy because, well, it's crazy, but it's not shocking because the pro-trans movement has been trying to invade all sorts of women's spaces, their bathrooms, their sports teams, they're everywhere. But this one's crazy because the Daughters of the American Revolution, at least at the leadership level, is accepting it and encouraging it. I think this is the really exemplary case of the transgender agenda. It's certainly up there. This is a group devoted to history and tradition and preserving the norms of our society. That is, of course, why it is being targeted. If the Daughters of the American Revolution starts to admit men, the Daughters of the American Revolution has been abolished. The definition of the Daughters of the American Revolution is that it is a group in which men are not welcome. It's for daughters, and daughters and sons are different. You can't expand things endlessly. When you expand things beyond their limits, you abolish that thing.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. We're live on Worldview Tube, and My guest today is helping us step through that issue that the Daughters of the American Revolution are admitting trans people. I don't call them trans women, folks. I call them men pretending to be women, because that's what they are, as full members of the Daughters of the American Revolution. And my guest today is Laura McDonald. She founded a group called Daughters Advocating for Restoration, and it exists for one purpose: to restore the DAR to what it's supposed to be, which is what Michael Knowles there is talking about. And Laura McDonald is my guest today. And Laura, you mentioned the special meeting in October. What is that all about?
So Robert's rules and our bylaws say that upon the request of 30 chapters in 10 states, the President General shall call a special meeting. So special meetings are for the sole purpose of discussing one or two items of business. So it's something that happened that it's when there's something of such significance that you have to have a special meeting to meet to deal with it. So the point is that it's not commingled with anything that's happening at the regular meeting, so that people aren't, like what happened at Congress, distracted by Congress activities. So we have requested a special meeting for October the 11th, 2026, on the birthday of our founding, which, by the way, October 11th, Columbus Day, was chosen specifically as the date of our founding of the DAR because it was Columbus Day. And now the DAR barely even recognizes Columbus Day, for whatever that's worth. And just so you know, too, restoration, for now, it is about restoring to women's only organization, but we are seeking to restore our founding principles, not just of being a women's only organization, but honoring our founders and our history, our American history. That's why this is so important, because over the years, we have seen institutions start to lean left, start to get away from promoting American exceptionalism. And the DAR should not be one of those institutions. Just want to say that for whatever that's worth. So we requested a meeting for that day for this purpose. And instead of doing that, they added it to Congress. They have absolutely no authority to do that. They gave themselves extra authority that the bylaws or Robert's Rules does not give them. So we are still looking for that special meeting. So that's we don't know if the President General is going to fulfill her duty. We've asked her, we've sent her many emails that she is ignoring. She is not responding to emails that we send her, registered letters, asking her when is she going to call that meeting. 114 chapters and 34 states have asked for that.
Wow, 34 states.
Yes, sir.
That's pretty close to what you need for a constitutional amendment to the Constitution of the United States. That's pretty close. So they're ignoring you on the meeting. And there's other avenues that are going on, because this is a congressionally commissioned organization. I have a couple of questions about that. One is what Michael Knowles talked about. Does the DAR, as it's commissioned by Congress, still exist? Because they have abdicated a 50% of the membership requirement. That'll become being an actual woman.
I would argue no. The DAR is no longer a women's only organization. And that's part of this whole gaslighting thing, is that to this day, I think even some of the leaders will tell us there's no men in the DAR, while saying, yes, we accept trans women. So I would argue that the DAR is no longer a women's only organization. That's what we're fighting to restore. And here's what we'll say about the congressional charter. And this is why this is so ironic, is that you've got women in leadership telling us that we don't have a First Amendment right to define our membership eligibility. We don't have that. It would be against the law to say no to these individuals. That's what they've told us. It would be against the DC Human Rights Act. That's what they've told us. So then when they're hearing that Congress wants to amend the charter, which they have every right to do, charter is not a right, it is a privilege.
That's right.
Congress has the authority to amend, give, or revoke a charter.
That's right.
So now that Congress is paying attention and saying, hey, DAR, we gave you this charter based on the premise that you are a women's genealogical society. It looks like you're not really adhering to your bylaws. maybe we need to revisit this charter. And which, by the way, DAR, you have the right to do whatever you want to do. You're a private association. You can let in whoever you want to or not. You need to amend your bylaws to allow for it. But, oh, and by the way, when you do that, now you're changing the whole premise of your society from which we granted you this congressional charter. So now you've got these women at the top who are, hollering, oh, it's illegal and we got to listen to the government, to how dare the government tell us what we can and can't do.
Yeah, absolutely. So there is a piece of legislation, Congressman Ben Cline from Virginia, H.R. 9701. What's that about?
Well, Representative Cline, like you said, from Virginia, we found out, I want to say a week or two ago, and I wish that we could claim credit as Daughters Advocating for Restoration. The first time I spoke to Congressman Cline's office was last week to thank him for the bill. Now, we think we had an indirect impact on that, but we first learned about it from just through the grapevine, to be honest, a couple of weeks ago. And we were thrilled when we heard it, because since we are in such a governance crisis right now, we're not sure how to get out of it. We're in a quagmire. But if Congress would step in and say, DAR, if you want to keep your charter, you have to adhere to your bylaws as they're written, that would probably solve the problem for the foreseeable future.
Because the bylaws say that you have to be a woman.
Correct.
With confirmed lineal heritage, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Is that what the bill does?
It does. I can't quote it verbatim, but essentially says that in order to be eligible for membership in the DAR, you have to be a woman that has either the ability or would have had the ability, except for medical issues, to be able to have children, essentially something along those lines. It's not so restrictive, to where it would, exclude women that have, maybe can't have children, or, maybe have don't have two X chromosomes. But if you have a Y, you're a guy. That's essentially what I think it's trying to home in on.
That's the way God created it. So if you have a Y, you're a guy.
That's right.
And is that going to be voted on? Do you know? What are they saying about it?
I think we're up to over 20 co-sponsors on that bill right now. I don't know. But we do need members of the DAR and non-members to write your congressman, to ask them to co-sponsor the bill. Let them know that you support this. And it's important that institutions like the DAR maintain their integrity, that words have meanings. Otherwise, what are we doing here? We're daughters in name only? And what does that mean? In the long term, it's a deterioration of our cultural norms, and of course, most importantly, it is it's getting away from God's order and natural law.
Absolutely right. It is across every American institution, and I, for one, have been calling for women, American women, to organize and act to stop this desecration of women's spaces, this disrespect of women's rights, because it's not just an opinion, Laura. This is becoming law more and more and more, like this D.C. law that this lawyer is trying to quote, saying that you have to be, you have to follow it. And by the way, 501c is a federal charity, nonprofit designation, not state or local. So I'd be interested to see them try to take a nonprofit status from a federal, a congressionally chartered organization. There's no local law involved in that, from what I understand. And I'm not a lawyer either, but I'm smart enough to read and have a little bit of common sense, and that's what we need. I got about 30 seconds left. Tell folks where they can donate to you guys and how you can help, because the DAR has 3,000 plus chapters in this country, and every one of them ought to be raising the roof to their congressman.
That's right. That's right. Well, we have a website, daughtersadvocatingrestoration.org. If you Google us, you'll find us. We have a Facebook group that's growing by the hundreds every day. We have a Give, Send, Go account that you can you can find through our Facebook page and our website. And again, monies raised right now are going to educate members about their rights under parliamentary procedure and trying to gather as many legal opinions as we can to so that members understand our rights as a private member association.
Absolutely. Well, Laura McDonald, folks, founder of the Daughters Advocating for Restoration and a member of the Daughters of the American Revolution herself. Go support them and support this effort. We've got to clean our institutions out. This is Marxism, and it's a disrespect of the law that women have fought so hard to get put in place in this country, and it's disrespecting their actual freedom, everything they've ever fought for and sacrificed for, and everything we've ever sacrificed for is in this effort. Go fight for it. I'm Rob Maness. I will see you tomorrow on Whistleblower Wednesday. We'll have Brian Trasher of the United Cajun Navy, who helped in the search and recovery of Nolan Wells, the young man that died off of Horn Island here on July 4th on the Gulf of America coast in Mississippi. I'll see you then.